Welcome to module number 3, how to push aside the paperwork and technology. What we're talking about really is relationship, and leadership is about people work, and it's about relationship with people. In my book, The Top 10 Mistakes Leaders Make, I refer to Jesus and how he touched people through his leadership. You know, it's amazing to me he only had 3 years to create a worldwide revolution. And even though he only had 3 years to accomplish what he had to accomplish, he never was rushed. You never sensed the feeling like, gotta go. I don't even think he had on a watch. It's amazing how he was able to accomplish so much and never be rushed. How did he do that? You know what he did? He poured all of his energy into the 12, into the 72, into his leadership team. It's all about relationship. We live in a world today where I think there's more distraction against relationship than ever before. The growing noise, I call it. I mean, you've got the internet, you've got email, we have our smartphones, we have our junk mail. Everybody is trying to attack us with information all the time, day and night, and I think it becomes distracting from a relationship. I found this quote the other day by Sherry Turkle, who's a professor of social studies at MIT, about relationship and solitude, and about how social media is robbing us of the treasure of great relationship and as a supply to leadership. Here's what she said. A capacity for solitude is what nurtures great relationships. But in today's always-on social media world, our solitude has been replaced by incessant online updates, which both weaken our sense of self and our ability to create genuine friendships. It is so true. It is so important. So how do we push aside the paperwork? How do we get rid of the technology? Now, I love technology. I mean, I'm just as addicted as the next person. But we have to push it aside from time to time to have that human interaction, that solitude of communion. Now, I do a lot of Skyping and other kinds of technology to connect with people all over the world. But I'm still a big believer in FaceTime. In fact, I've used the word, there's no substitute for FaceTime, long before Apple ever invented that little technological app on our iPhones and our iPads. There's no substitute for FaceTime. How do you push aside the paperwork? How do you just push aside the technology? Here's some tips. Number 1, love your wastebasket. Number 2, love your delete button. You know, you don't have to read everything that comes into your mailbox, whether it's electronic or real. I open my mail, well, I don't even open it. I stand over the trash can whenever I get mail at my house, and I throw 90% of it away. I'm the same way about email. Now, some of the stuff I'm going to give you as examples of how to push aside paper. You're going to say, like, duh, really? Yeah, this is not rocket science, but it's a good practice. Do meals with people. Just today, I had a wonderful meal with a good friend, and we just talked about our children and our life and our challenges, and I thought, this is cool. You know, because we're having a meal away from our work, we're having a chance to get to know each other as people. Do meals with people. Plan off-site events and team retreats. Again, this should be a no-brainer, but I've seen workaholic teams that never leave the building. Get out of the building. Go have off-sites. In my career of leadership, I've found that retreats and camping and off-site events are some of the greatest ways to build team relationships. Take people with you. I've always practiced as I've traveled around the world to take people that work with me on these trips. And whenever I've hired new people to join my team, as soon as possible, I try to schedule for us to go on a trip together. Because it's amazing, I think it was Abraham Lincoln who said, you can learn more about a person in an hour of play than in a year of conversation. So when you're traveling, you really get to know people. Go to people's homes. Now that's kind of radical, and it seems like we've lost the art of hospitality, but I have traveled the world, and one of my greatest treasures of my travel, we have staff all over the world, and in the nonprofit that I ran for 20 years, what I enjoyed most is sitting in the living room of our staff in their homes, whether it was in Uganda or France or China. Go to people's homes. Reading. Practice what I call Ransack reading. Maybe you know this, but you don't have to read every word of every book. I love reading books. I read at least a book or two a month, but I don't feel I have to read every word on every page. And I will ransack magazines, I'll ransack newspapers, and I'll ransack books, and that I don't feel guilty if I don't finish it and put away and move on to the next. Break your routine. I learned this in a negative way from my former boss that I used to work for. And as I was being cultivated for leadership, I wanted to get to know him better. And I remember one time I went to the corporate office, the headquarters, and I said, let's go out to lunch. He said, no, let's meet in my office. I said, no, let's go out to lunch. He said, no, let's meet at my office. He was kind of a workaholic, and he was just stuck in his routine. I made him go out to lunch with me because I wanted to get to know him. Break your routine, and right along the lines of that is change your location. Don't always work at the same place with the same exact routine. See people as number one. Don't interrupt people when they're talking to you. Leave your phone for an hour or two. Go on a technology vacation. And finally, manage by wandering around. Get up from your desk, get up from your workspace, get up from your cubicle. I practice this at least once every morning. I try to practice it twice a day. Wander around the halls, just bump into somebody, anybody. How you doing? What's going on? You know what I found? People are honored if the boss stops at their cubicle and says, hey, what are you working on today? Give them a chance to tell you and say, man, that's cool. Great. Thank you so much for being part of the team. These are some examples of how you can push aside the paperwork and technology and make room for people. Go to hansfinzel.com to check out my Leadership Answer Man podcast and other great resources for taking your leadership to the next level.